talk a little bit about what it is that we're going to see while Steve does that. We're going to look at a couple of different things today. So make sure you have a pair of anaglyph glasses ready. We will take a look at some things in anaglyph for 3D. So just make sure you have them handy to be able to grab them. We're not going to need them right away, but we will actually talk about that. Let's talk about while we're waiting on Steve to come back, let's talk a little bit about what our focus is today. This is a dual workshop. So we're going to talk about two different things. We're going to talk about how to be able to take a black and white image and convert that to color. And then we're going to talk about how to take that color image and then convert that into 3D. I mean, you could convert the black and white to 3D as well if you wanted to, but we're going to go through the process for both. I'm going to talk about how to be able to do that in an automated fashion and using technology so that you don't have to do any of the work. And literally, you'd be able to take a black and white image, convert it to color, and then convert that color image to a 3D stereo image in the space of 5 minutes for all of it. So black and white, color, 3D, 5 minutes total time in there to be able to do that. And that's what we're going to talk about there today. So I think that's actually some pretty impressive stuff on how to be able to do that and what it is that we can do in here. I'm going to show you some of the capabilities for that. We're also going to talk about some of the limitations for that in there for the challenges, and I'll show you some ways to be able to overcome those. Again, I'm just waiting for Steve to come back and see if we're ready to get ourselves rolling. The type of images that I'm talking about are the type that I have over my shoulder in my background image here. That is one that I did completely by hand. This is a hand colorization that I did a number of years ago. For me to be able to do that, it probably took me 4 or 5 days in there to be able to create this particular image in there for that. And then to be able to do it. In this case, this was, I only had one side of a stereo. This is actually a stereo, but I only had one side. I have done conversions for this one, but it's a bit of a challenge in there to be able to do that. And we're going to talk about what you need to be able to do hand colorizations and why this technique is actually probably a great enhancement, and then the ability to be able to do 3D conversions and why that's actually so much easier and faster than it was. Let's talk about colorization on there. Last year during the NSA, I did a workshop, and the link to the workshop is actually available. Last year during the NSA, I did a workshop on how to do colorizations by hand. And during the course of that workshop, that I did see a couple of messages or a couple of questions at the end. People were asking, is there ways to be able to do it automated to be able to do that, which I had actually looked at a few years before, and the technology just wasn't there. It wasn't ready. It wasn't capable. It wasn't possible to be able to do that. And a couple of weeks after that, Susan Pinsky posted a message in one of the 3D forums, and she talked about this site here, MyHeritage. MyHeritage actually has the ability to go in and to do colorizations. This is something that was done automatically in there to be able to do it, and it's great. It has the capability to manage that, and it can do the colorizations by itself. There are some limits. We'll talk about what those limits are. But when I looked at that, I was like, wow, that's fantastic. But I ran into a couple of issues. The issues that I ran into, first off, is that in order to be able to do it for MyHeritage, that you actually have to pay for this particular service. It will allow you to be able to go and to be able to do 10 of them. It says, oh, you can go in here and you can upload them. But when you go to be able to upload them and to be able to do that, it only allows you to be able to do 10. Free sign up required to be able to actually do the upload. And then that it will allow you to do 10 for free. After the 10 for free, you can't do any more unless you pay for it, unless you subscribe to it. And it's a couple $100s a year to be able to do that. So it's like, okay, well, that's interesting. Why, are there ways to be able to do it and to be able to do it for free so I don't have to do that? So if you notice on here, it says license from DeOldify. It's a little hard to be able to read that in there, created by, and it gives the names of the creators in there for that. So I went looking for that. And when I found that, what I found was I found a couple of things. First off, I found a site on here. This is Image Colorizer. And you notice on here that this one is actually from DeOldify. So it is from the group that started that. They created this, and this is a free version of what it is that they have. Now, they claim that the version that they're using on the MyHeritage site is more advanced, but this is a free version of that. They're on no cost for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and post that link out here. Let me actually just make sure I'm on the right page. There we go. I'm going to post this link into the chat, and I'll post a number of these things. I've got quite a bit that we're going to post in here for this. So let me just get that one there, and I'll go ahead and post the link for this particular page. So this area in here, like I said, this is a free one in here to be able to do this. The challenges that I have for this one is that you do have to go in here, and when you are running this, you actually have to go and run these things one at a time in here for this. So essentially what you want to do is you want to start this one, and then you move down and you move through each one of these steps in here to be able to do it. It's not difficult to be able to do, but you do have to do each one of these in order the first time that you go into it. So you click on this one, it's going to ask you if you want to be able to run it, and then you run the first step in there for that. And then we want to complete this for each of the steps. There's about a half a dozen different steps to be able to do it. You only need to do these initial setup the first time. After you do it the first time, then it will take those others there for you. You don't have to do anything again after you've done it. But if you come back in the next day, you are going to have to go through these steps again. So let's just go through. Let's take a look at the steps that we need to do, and let's see what we can do here and what we get out of this.
So you're doing this on Google Drive? Or
no,
Colab?
This is actually Google Colab. You don't
Colab.
need anything to be able to do this. Yeah, you don't need an account or anything in here. We're going to talk about others that you will need accounts for. This one, you do not need an account. It's very easy to be able to do it. You'll get some warning messages like this in here. You don't need to worry about those. You can skip those. They aren't going to harm anything. It does say restart, and you just ignore them in there for that. We're going to just continue down, and we're just going to do each one of these. You notice they're in order in here for what it is that we need to be able to do. And then we're seeing the last one in here for this. Last couple of ones. Let me get these out of the way here. And I'll talk about some of the benefits and some of the advantages and some of the disadvantages in here. Now, I used this one for quite a while in here, and then I'll talk about what it is that I'm using today. I used this one for quite a while, and I liked it. And I'm going to talk about some other ones in here that are free and some paid services in there to be able to do that. So the reason that I use this one is that it did have the advantage in here. Once we get all of these instructions, let me get these instructions in here. So basically, just go to the site that I did. You follow those directions down, and then once you get there, then you can go in here, and then you can run it from here. So let's go over here. Let's actually pick up an image on here. One of the disadvantages that I don't like about this is that you do have to have the images available online for you to be able to access them. So you can do it with any image in there to be able to do that, but it does have to be an image that you can actually get to and to be able to link to in there online. So you need a place to be able to store it and to be able to put something in there for that. And I just realized that I had not saved an image in here that I wanted to be able to do. Let's take a look at this one. This one looks like it would be pretty good. Let's take a look at this image here. What I want to do is I want to be able to find the location for the JPEG, and we're going to run this one here. So I just need to pick up
it has to be a JPEG?
It can be a JPEG or a PNG in there to be able to do this. Now, when I'm running that in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go in to my system here, and I'm just going to paste that link in there to be able to do that. And then I have the option in here. You notice it says the render, and it has options to be able to do some control. This is the one thing that I really liked about it. So let's actually just go ahead and run this one. Let's see what it does in here for this. The disadvantage that I don't like about this is that you do have to have someplace online for you to be able to upload the image. So you can't just go there and run this unless you have access to be able to have a storage place online for that. So here is the finished image. We're seeing the finished image, and you notice how long it took to be able to do that. And then I see the original black and white, and then and then a small version of the color side by side for that. But that's as long as it took to be able to do it. Very easy to be able to do. You can put stereo image in there as well. So very quick, very easy. There are some limitations, so I'll talk about those to be able to do it. But I mean, what did it take to be able to do that? For me to be able to do this by hand, this is something that would take me 3 or 4 days to be able to do it. And you saw that I did it in there in a matter of about 60 seconds or so. Very, very quick to be able to do that in here. Here's some of the limits that I have with this, though, is that the limit that I have with that is that you do not have the ability to be able to do large images. It is limited to about 3,000 by 3,000 pixels. If you have something that's larger, and certainly, for example, a lot of the ones on the Library of Congress, they're 6,000 or 7,000 by 6,000 or 7,000. So they're about 4 times the size of what this one is, and it will not do those that large. You have to scale them down and then scale them back. And so there's some limits in there to be able to do that, and some challenges in there. This one, what I like about this one is that when I go in there, if I want to be able to adjust that, I have some controls in here, this render factor, and I can adjust that in here to be able to go from 0 to 40 and give me more or less control. And it would give me more or less type of images that we have in there to be able to do that. And we can actually process this to be able to get more variations of color. You want a stronger depth, less color in there, etc. in there to be able to do that. So that works pretty well to be able to do that. But like I said, it's limited in size, and you have to do them one at a time to be able to do this. So I wanted some other ways to be able to do that. So I actually found a few other things and a few other systems to be able to do that in here. So what I did was, if I can get over to my proper screen here for that.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
You said you have to have a site for it to go to. What do you use for that? Can you just use like a Google or?
You know, I actually have my own website to be able to do that. So I was posting them there to be able to do that. I believe you could do it with the Google Drive. You need a link to the file to be able to have it. So I believe you could, but you need to be able to access where you can link out to you know, the JPEG or the PNG file to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's going to be a limitation. A lot of people don't have their own.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go through. I'm going to talk about this one. What I like about this one is that it gives you some options to be able to control it. I'm going to show you some other options that you don't have, and then we're going to talk about some paid options as well to be able to do that. So, in fact, let me just talk about the first one in there that I had shared, and I'll go ahead and post the link to that one. This is the MyHeritage one that I had shown you. This one, like I said, first 10 are free, and then you got to pay. You got to register so they get your email, and they want to try to get you to sign up for them to be able to pay it. MyHeritage is primarily a family tree type of place. They want you to track your family history and that sort of thing. If you're interested in that, it's a great service for that. You get the color conversions in there for free, but you're essentially paying a couple $100 a year. If this is the only thing you're using it for, it's a kind of an expensive service, in my opinion, to be able to do that. But there's the link to be able to do it that I just posted in there for that one. Then there are some other ones in here to be able to do it that I found, and the next one in here. This is actually a free one in here for that. It allows you to be able to go through here and to be able to convert an image over and to be able to do it. This one is absolutely free. There is no charge for this one. They do have some paid things in here for this. The paid services, from what I can tell, I don't understand this, what the 8 credits is and the 60 credits. I don't understand what that is in there for that. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to register for anything. You notice in here, if you're paying for the additional services, you get more credits. I don't know what a credit is. But you're still having to pay for the ads, so I don't understand that. So anyway, let's actually just take a look at what it does in here and how that it works. Pretty easy to be able to do. I'm going to take an image from here. I'm going to take one of mine in here. One of the limits that you have in here is, just like we saw before with the one, it is limited to a 3,000 by 3,000. So this seems to be a common type of theme in there to be able to do that. It's also limited in there to a JPEG or a PNG, and it's limited in this case to a 5 megabyte pixel size for that. So for this one in here, for me to be able to do it, I'm going to take an image here, and I'm going to take and drag and drop an image over here. So I picked an image. We're going to play with that image in a moment. Then I'm going to go ahead and start that. This one here does run pretty quick to be able to do that as well. And we'll notice that back here in just a moment. Okay, it says download. When I click on the download, then it brings it up to be able to see it. And you saw how quick it is to be able to do that. And again, this is one of those that would take a number of days for me to be able to do. The amount of detail in here is quite extensive. But the challenge that I have here is that when you're working on this, it does do it at the lower resolution. You'd have to maximize that to be able to do it. And there are some things that I know from having worked on historical images that are wrong about this one, and we'll talk about how to be able to correct this. And then the sky isn't right. It's not the way that I want it. So I'll see about correcting those. Let me post that one into the link just to make sure that I have it for you guys. So that one is a free service in here. You just drag and drop. It's very easy to be able to do it, and you can get that in there to be able to do those. Now, let's talk about some of the, I've talked about the ones in here that are color service to be able to do that. And you notice that those are limited in size. The automated or the free ones that I talked about are limited in size. When I was looking at those, I actually did go and said, okay, I want to be able to have something that I can actually convert a lot of these images simultaneously. I don't have to worry about that. I can actually just run them in group and I can just let them go. I also wanted to be able to do larger size images. When I was doing that, I found a site called PixBim Color. So here is one that will allow you to be able to do that. The difference here is that this is a paid service in here. You notice that the normal price is $79.99. Right now, it happens to be $39.99, which I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I purchased this one about 4 or 5 months ago, and when I purchased it, it was $39.99. From what I see, the price is always $39.99. I do see sometimes it will say, hey, there's a Memorial Day, there's a 4th of July sale or whatever, and the price will be $39.99. So as far as I can tell, the price is always $39.99. I'm not going to guarantee that's going to happen, but here's why I ended up purchasing this one, and I'll show you why I did it. So anyway, I paid the 40 bucks for it. So
is that a $40 a year?
No, this is a one-time fee. You download the program, you have the program in your system, and that's actually one of the things. That's one of the 2 reasons, actually one of the 3 reasons that I liked it, and why I purchased it. So the other services, like you see here, for MyHeritage, you pay an annual subscription fee for that. It's a couple $100 a year to be able to do that. And some of the other ones were limited. You've got to have a website to be able to do that. There's some other limitations. I'm not trying to promote one or the other. I'm just trying to give you some options in there for this, because they all do about the same job in here. The reason that I chose this one was a couple of reasons. One is that that is a one-time price. I only have to pay that one time, and then I'm done with that to be able to do that. The next in there is that when I go here, it will allow me to be able to go and do this for larger image sizes. So if I go in here and I go over to where I have them, and I have them over here for my demo, and we're going to use the one in here. Let's use the same one that we did a moment ago. We'll do the fort option in there to be able to do that. And I'm going to open up the black and white image. It is not limited to the file size like we had before. As soon as I open it up, by the way, you notice it will immediately generate a preview for me and give me that file for me immediately in there. So it is very quick, just like it is with the others to be able to do it. You notice that the color is very similar to what we saw previously in there for that. I do have some controls over here. It's another thing that I liked about this. It allowed me to be able to have controls over this. I can go in there and I can change some of the intensity and the color in there, and then I can actually go in here and process the final results in here. So you can make it more or less. I probably shouldn't have changed it while we were trying to demo it, because it's taking up resources on my system. It's running locally on that. There we go. You probably didn't notice a whole lot of differences in there, but it does allow you to be able to have controls, which the other ones did not. So I like that type of thing in there. And because it allows you to be able to do it for larger file sizes, you're not limited. In fact, I haven't found a limit on this one. So I'm using full-size files that are 100 megabytes a piece in there for that. And if I tried running those through the others, I have to downscale them, upscale them, so there's issues with it to be able to do that. So this is the one that I personally am using. I'm not recommending. They all have about the same quality in there as you've seen in there, and the speed is all about the same in there to be able to do that. Questions about this one before I go talk about the problems that I had with all of these and how to be able to resolve them for our color situations in there. Any questions about that?
That was going to be my question. Is your biggest challenge color matching left and right images?
Actually, when it does that, it does a great job to be able to do the left and right. And I can actually do the full stereo in here to be able to do that. Let's actually just take a look at one of those. I've actually done, one of the things that one of the main reasons that I purchased this too is that it does have the ability in here to be able to go in and to do batch processing in here. And I can go in there and just select a folder and have it run. And it will actually run and do, you can do 100 or 1,000 at a time. And literally in one night, well, actually, let me put this in perspective. I've been doing colorizations of stereo images for 12 years, and I've done probably 250, 300 color stereo images, plus ones that I just do in color for 2D for some of the work that I do for those. Total of around 1,000 over the last 12 years for that. I went and ran every single Civil War stereo pair that I had, which is about 2,200 of them. And I set it up and ran it overnight. And then the next morning, all of them were ready. So I have now done 2,300 in the space of the time that it took me to be able to do in there, what I did in 12 years. I actually, exceeded that in one night in there for that. So here is a side-by-side stereo. This is the stereo in here. It's a left-right image in there to be able to do that. Let's just go ahead and open that one up. This is full size. That it is about, I would say 12,000 by 6,000 is the size in there for that one. So it's two 6,000 by 6,000 size images in there. So quite a bit larger than what you would see, for example, with inside of your image. And there you go. And it did both sides, and it's pretty much done in there to be able to do that. So you're getting a pretty good color rendition for both sides simultaneously to be able to do that in there for that. So I don't know, Carl, if that answers what you're looking for in there for that. Pretty easy to be able to do it in that regards. There are some differences. You'll notice some differences in here on the Canon, on some of those type of things. We'll talk about those. There are some other issues that I know of in here, and I'll talk about some of those issues. Look at that and to be able to correct those. But any questions about just how to be able to take the AI capability and to be able to do the conversion, whichever, like I said, I'm not promoting one or the other. I'm doing this one primarily because it allows me to do larger images, gives me more control, and to be able to do batch processing where I can just set it up and have it run overnight and I don't have to touch it. All of the other ones, you have to do them one at a time. Run the image, download it, run the image, download it, run the image, download it. And so you're literally sitting there doing it one at a time. And this one, because it's local on your system, you can just hit the button and just have it do the whole directory. And, 10 minutes later, you have a batch of, 50 or 100 of them there that are ready to go. So it's pretty easy.
I mean, do you find that like any particular one outperforms the other? I mean, for me, this is the option that makes sense. And $39.99 is nothing, but I mean, do you find that any one of them outperforms the other?
No, they all have this. I've run it through all of them, and they all generally have about the same results. From what I can tell, they're probably, and I can't guarantee it, but what I showed you here, where it went through and you were downloading it and you're doing these type of things, what I suspect in here, because this is the behind the scenes code to be able to do it, and literally the ones in here that were done by the DeOldify group that originated this, from what I can tell in here, that all of these that use the same logic and technology, they just automated some of those functions in there in here to be able to do it. Now, the reason that I showed you this one here is that this one does allow you to be able to do some result control by having some control in there. The other ones did not do, that were free options in there to be able to do that. So that is an advantage, but the outcome of the results is just about the same between all of them. So I suspect that behind the scenes, they're all using the same technology. I can't prove it, but that's what I suspect because the results are so similar in there for that. Now, other questions here before we go in and look at issues that we have and how to be able to resolve those.
Yes. Going back to that image colorizer Colab.
Yeah.
What is it that render factor does?
So if I run the render factor, I don't want to run it on here because it does take a little bit of time to be able to do it. But what it will do is it will give you variations of that. So it will give you more or less color. So if I go back over here, easiest way to be able to see it is in here. If I do it on this one in here for that, if I adjust the color temperature and I can go in here and said, I want it to be more color or less color, I can actually control that and control the intensity. So those are the type of things that it does in that other one. It just gives you a choice of about 40 in there to be able to do that. And then it will give you a list of those to be able to see that. In here, I can actually control those type of things and control that, how I want the color. A little easier to be able to see it in here to be able to do it. On the other one, I have to run it. And then it was like, oh, that didn't look good. That looks stupid. I don't like that one. I'm going to have to do it again. Over here, I can actually just see the results immediately. So personally, I like this one, but it's the same type of thing. This is basically what it's doing. Get more color, less color, more intensity, less intensity. This is basically what it's doing in there for those render factors in there for that. And that's the only one.
Do you
Sorry.
have experience with different types of photos, like photos with people versus photos of
Yeah, and I'm
animals?
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to show you that in just a moment. Yeah, we'll absolutely take a look at that. I didn't put any in here. Actually, I'll show you one in here that I did. Let's actually do one in here for that. Let's load another one in here. I'll show you one in here that was actually a problem that I ran. Not a problem, but it give you an example of the issues in there for that. So let's actually just take this one here and let's go ahead and open that. So here is one of Erwin Rommel that I did for, this is actually for a one that I did for somebody who was doing a book and they wanted an image of him. So I did it for a commercial one in here recently for that. All right, so if you look at the background's good, the skin tone is good, but the uniform absolutely sucks. It's just wrong. It's just all over the place. It's just not what we want. There's issues with that. So we need to be able to fix that type of thing in here. So let's go in here. Let's talk about those problems and then see how to be able to fix those in here for that. So I have Photoshop opened over here. You can do this in Photoshop. You can do this in GIMP to be able to do this for what I'm looking at in here. We were just talking about the areas for people. So I have a people example one in here. Let's actually start with a people example in here and we'll look at that and I'll show you the problem that I have in here for this. This is as it came in when I ran it through the colorizer. At this point, I've done nothing other than just bring it into the colorizer and it's looking pretty good. Let's talk about a couple of the issues that we have. First off, if we look at it in here, if we go over here and we go up into the area for the face, you notice in here that some of the hair is not colored. His eyes are colored in where it shouldn't be, so we have areas in there. His ear is colored in here where it shouldn't be. And then if I look at his hand here, you'll notice his hand is not colorized. And we've got some other elements in here that are just going off the scale a little bit. So they're not working in here. And I need to be able to fix those kind of things in here for that. Also, well, you may not realize it in here, but there's just other things in here. The uniform color is not correct. The collar needs to be in gold. The buttons need to be in gold. The uniform sleeves here, this pattern in here, swirl pattern, this needs to be in gold. There's other things that are just not right about it that I know because I work with these images all the time. But it's like I need to be able to fix those to be able to do those correctly in here for that. So to do this, what we want to do is I want to go in and I want to use a mask in here for this. So let's talk about what a mask does in here. A mask is going to let us go in and to be able to color in what we want and to see and what we don't want to be able to see. So I'm going to bring over an area in here and we're going to look at this. You notice in here that right now I have my mask turned off for that. Let's enable the mask and let's see what it is that we're seeing in here. So what I did was I went in and I said, these are the areas that I liked. So anything in white is visible, anything in black is invisible. So these are the areas that I like. So out of that entire image in here, let's go back to the original image. We'll disable that. Out of the entire image, the only thing that I kept out of that was just these elements here. Everything else I said, nah, it's not worth it. I don't want it, and I want to be able to fix it to be able to correct it. So this is what I started with. Now let's talk about how that I fixed it in here. Let's go in here. Let's talk a little about one of the ones that's most obvious. Let's talk about this hand right here. This is a problem. Obviously, it's an issue in there. We do have the other hand actually looks decent. It looks good. The skin tone looks good in there to be able to do that. So how did I fix that in here? I'm going to go in here. I'm going to add another layer on top of that. This next layer is going to be a color layer in here. And what I'm going to do in here is that I'm going to go into that one and I'm just going to sample an area where we did have the color and then add the color in here to be able to do that. So let's take a look at the other issue that we had. That was the one at the top. You notice in here that it is still gray. It hasn't colorized the hair in properly, and well, we're starting to see one of those things that we fixed already. So you notice that his eyes were colored in, and I actually corrected that one already by just doing the masking in here for what we did here. And then I added another color layer, which actually fixed the area for the hair that we're seeing here. So I'm seeing the hair over here, to be able to fix that, to be able to see the way that I ultimately want to do it. So how do we add a mask in there to be able to do those? To add a mask, all you need to do, and let me actually just duplicate this so I can have another one to be able to play with. And we'll go in here. Let me turn this one off and we'll delete the layer mask. All right. So this is what I got initially in here and said, this is what initially was there, the initial image. And then I wanted to be able to make some corrections in the areas that I wanted to keep and not keep in there to be able to do that. So I wanted to go and add a mask in here. So I go down here, add a layer mask. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. You notice it gives me a white area. Essentially, everything in here is now available for me to be able to do that. Let me pull over my tool palette over here. And I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to start erasing things, but I'm going to erase them just in the mask. And I'll show you why we're going to do that. So in here, for example, I don't want the eyes to be colored in. I want them not to be colored in there, and I'm going to manage those later in there. I don't need those automatically filled in. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do erase on that. Now, why did I do that on here? So if I make a mistake, if I go in here and I make a mistake in here and I start putting something in there, I can now go and fix this by going back in and painting it back in. And now I can paint over that to be able to fix a problem. So let's actually just make a big issue in here. We're going to highlight a big section and we're just going to click on delete, and boom, now I have an image that's partly black and white and partly in color. I can now, with using the mask, I can go in here and then just go and paint the white area back in. So it's just painting white back over top of it, and it adds the color back. If I had done this without the mask, it would have destroyed it. I cannot restore that. It just has the image, and then there will be a big hole cut out of it. Here, it's not a hole cut out of it. It's actually in there with just a mask so that I can hide or display it depending on what it is that I want to be able to do. The mask is going to be very, very important for us to be able to do that. Questions about what we're doing in the mask area? It's a little bit more advanced stuff, but questions about that? So let's go back over to my results. This is the result that I had, and then I added a color layer in here. And then there were other issues that I needed to be able to fix and resolve. So the other issues that I needed to be able to fix and resolve, I didn't like the color of the uniform. I didn't like the color of the buttons. I didn't like some of these other issues. And what I did was I made my own additional mask layer. Now I have a palette that I use to be able to do things, and I actually have those in here. And I have about 120 or so that I typically use. And they already have those colors in there. All I need to do is just go ahead and go into the mask, just like we did here. They already, all of them have a mask on there, and I just add the color in here. So in here, this is the finished image and the finished results in here to be able to do that. And I'm seeing in here, for example, the brass buttons. And if we look at this here, if we look at this, here is the area that I did in brass, and I can see, okay, I did these areas and I did these areas to be able to do it. And then for me to be able to go in here to be able to add it, all I need to do is go over there. I'm going to pick up my paintbrush in here. I'm inside of that mask, and I need to be able to add something in color. I can add it. I need to be able to erase it. I can erase it. That's all I need to be able to do. So I'm going to do that to be able to add in the color that I wanted the ultimate, the finished image to be in there. I'm going to add that in here to be able to fix or resolve those type of things, and to be able to get them looking the way that I wanted it with the final image in there. Questions about what we're looking at in here before we go and see what the final results is that I did for this one?
Your color palette there, did that were those colors included with the program, or did you have to create those and add them to the library?
Essentially, what we're crossing the lines in here for what was done automated and what I'm doing manually in here. So what was done automated, what was here, everything else, I'm starting to use some of the techniques that I have done over the years to do manual colorization. So I'm showing you how to be able to take a automated color image and to be able to add manual corrections for that to be able to get a final finished result that does what it is that you want to be able to do. And so all of the areas in here with these color palettes and what I'm seeing here, this is my manual techniques. And so I'm adding my manual techniques onto the automated techniques to be able to make the process easier. That's what I'm doing.
David, would your the tutorial you did earlier help people with the coloring?
Yes, that will definitely do it in there. What I don't talk about in that one, good point, Steve. What I don't talk about in that one is that I am using mask in here for this. I did not talk about the mask in that one because it was quick. We only had 30 minutes. It was very quick to be able to do it. And I just didn't have time. So I didn't go into the mask area, but mask is very important for me to be able to do it. I find it a lot easier. So this is the model that I'm doing for that. So let's actually just take a look at the finished image, and then I want to show you one more. and then we'll see that. So in here, this is what my finished image looked like, and we can see that and compare that with what we had here, which is the, actually, let me take this. So this is what we had started with originally, and then this is what we had finished with for that. So you can see the differences in here, the area, the skin tones, the area for the jacket, the area for the hair, the color, the eyes in here, and you can see the differences. Now I can take that image, and then we want to take that and convert that over into 3D for that. Any questions here? I want to show you one more quick example, but any questions here about what we did here?
I have a question going back to the image
Yes, sir.
Canon.
Mhm.
Just noticing that between the stereo pair, there are some color differences, and I'm
There
wondering
are. Mhm.
if you had done any balancing to the black and white pair before you did the color process on it,
Okay.
and if possibly running the pair through the auto color in StereoPhoto Maker would help with any of that.
Good question. So the one that I have in here, oops, that's the wrong one. Let's go over here. We're getting a little further ahead of ourselves. I have it closed out now. But the one that we had in there, which is basically both sides of this in there for that. I had not run that on that example in there. Those were basically straight off the Library of Congress with no balancing and adjustments in there. So if I was doing those for something that I was wanting to be able to do professionally, yes, I absolutely would, Eric. It will make a difference because there is a difference between what is in the left and right. And what I would do in that particular case is that I would go in and I would add in an adjustment layer, and I'm going to add in a curves adjustment layer, and then I'm going to do the left side and then the right side independently, and then adjust the curves for those to be able to get them the way that I want it. So that's what I would do in that particular case for that. Let's take a look at this one. This one, the image that I showed you here, with me, if I was wanting to do this without using the auto colorization, I probably could do this because I've been doing it for quite a while. I probably could do this in about 2 hours or so, maybe even an hour. It doesn't take very long. It's not terribly difficult to be able to do this. I wanted to show you what we can do with the colorization. Let's take a look at this one. This one is something that it would take me days to be able to do it. And this is the result that I did for, that came straight off of the auto colorization without any enhancements in here. And let's talk about what we're looking at in here and some of the issues that I had in here for this. So as we're looking at this, the ability to be able to do these fine little details in here in the dirt and the sand, those types of things, that's what takes forever to be able to do it. And that's what I really like about this particular technique. Now I'm going to go in here, I'm going to turn off my layer mask so I can see the results that I did. So essentially, I took almost everything. There is just a handful of things that I said I don't want, everything else that I did like, and I said I will use those in my final image. And then what I did in there was I went in and I added in some additional elements. So the elements that I added in here, this should be in here, should be green for this. This should be in here as iron or black, and this is a bronze cannon in here to be able to do that. And then I wanted to be able to add some clouds and some other styles in here. So again, I just added the hand techniques above it, just like we saw in there, to be able to do it. Add in the sky, add in the clouds, add in those type of elements in there to be able to do it. And then I went from what we had from what was there. Essentially, this would have taken me, like I said, about 3 or 4 days, particularly with the amount of detail that's in here. And I was actually able to produce this in less than one afternoon in there because of using that combination of techniques. So this is, to me, the big, huge advantage is to be able to do those type of things and just to be able to just knock them out in no time flat compared to what I could do previously. Questions about those before we get into 3D conversions?
Yes. Do any of these AI services or programs have any feature in them that allows you to nudge which direction the AI decides to color certain parts of the photo, or does that just all have to be done, like you're saying, after the fact in Photoshop?
The paid one that I showed you here, you can go in there and you can nudge things in there to be able to do that. There's also some other areas which I haven't gone into It does have the ability to be able to do some manual colorization within this program in here. I'm not a fan of it from playing with it because it seems very limited, and because I have Photoshop and have experience in there, I actually avoided it. But it does have some advantage or some options in there in that one paid service that I showed you in there to be able to do that. All of the others, I haven't seen anything that that gives you any flexibility or any control over those. Other questions here? All right. So we've talked about this in here and what it is that we can do there. Let's talk about that once we have that image and we have our image in there and we've got it into color, whatever we wanted to be able to do with it. We want to take that and convert that over into a stereo image. So here is actually one that I submitted last year for this is one that I did for one of the competitions last year in there. And I had hand colorized it. I had done the colorization before, but I wanted to be able to convert it. This is actually a 2D image, and I wanted to be able to convert it to a 3D in here for that. So well, I needed to go in here and do a depth map. There are, to be able to do a depth map in here, let's talk about what it is that we're doing. When we went in there and we were doing colorizations, I showed you how that we added a mask in there, and then we mapped it out, and I could paint it in white, and it would allow me to be able to see it. I'd paint it in black, and it would allow me to be able to hide it. We're doing something similar in here for that. What we're doing in here is that we're telling it where the depth is. In this case, what it's doing is anything that's black is close to the screen. Anything that is white is far away from the screen. So essentially, this, you could see this would be your window, and this would be your horizon in here as far back as you can see. And you can see in here that it's got the area here, the area where the woman is, the area where the front of the bombs is. This is the closest part of the image. And then you can see how it starts to go further and further back in here to be able to do that. You can do this by going in here and using Photoshop, opening it up, and then you can start to color in here, and you color in the area that you want, you color in the next one, and you create a black and white over top of the one that you have in here to be able to do that. And then there's some options in there to be able to convert that, to be able to do that. Masuji Suto has actually added some of that type of capability into StereoPhoto Maker. So inside of StereoPhoto Maker, if you have an image in here that has the ability or has a depth map, like what we're looking at here, you can go in here and you can actually take and create a 3D image from that 2D depth map. Or you can do that by clicking it on the menu here, or you can just press Alt-D. Let's do that and see what it does. It's going to bring up this particular menu in here. The deviation is how much depth do you want? So do you want more depth? Do you want less depth? Where do you want that to be? And then the FR is allowing you to be able to choose in here. I can choose where that front screen position is, and I can choose that to be able to do that. And then if I have a depth map that is reversed, so white is in the front and black is in the back in there, I can actually choose which one I want in here to be able to do that. So let's actually run this one. Let's take a look at what we did. Just going to leave all the things at the defaults. I'll go ahead and click on that. You notice it did it that fast to be able to do that. Let's actually go here and let's take a look at that. So here is my anaglyph. So if you have your anaglyph glasses, let's take a look at that and see what we did. Literally that fast to be able to do it. And I'll show you how to be able to make the depth map image, because that's what takes the time in there. And you see this one is actually pretty good in there to be able to do that. And that took me, what did it take me to be able to do that? Literally, a second, 2 seconds, very, very quick to be able to do that in here. So we want to be able to do that. How do we do that, and how do we get this result? Basically, how do I do this depth map? Like I said, I can manually do that in there in Photoshop. It takes quite a long time and quite a bit of patience and practice to be able to do that. So I wanted a way to be able to do this automated in there to be able to do that. And Masuji actually has conveniently added the capability to be able to do that. And he used an area called Google Colab to be able to do that. Now, he actually wrote some directions on how to be able to do this. Okay, I don't need that one anymore, so let me close that one out. And we are going to go over in here. We're actually over here to be able to do this. So in here, he actually wrote some directions in here for that. And where are the directions that I put? Let me see. Oh, here they are. So here are the directions that Masuji put in there to be able to do this. The directions are good. There's a couple of problems in here. One is that because he's doing it from Japan, all of the screenshots are all in Japanese. So it makes it difficult to be able to see what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're trying to be able to accomplish. And he's even got like some directions in here. Do this. Okay, I don't know what that means. He does have them written in English in here for this. And some of these steps have been updated and they're not current in here to be able to do this. So there's some challenges. So I actually rewrote those directions in here, and I have the directions in here. It does the same thing. In fact, it links out to his original directions in here to be able to do that. There's also a YouTube video that was done that goes through. It uses the Japanese directions in here to be able to do it, but it goes through step by step to be able to do that. I wrote them in here and I redid them. They're all in English now, and that it is updated to the correct ones. And it does have some things in there to be able to do that. So if you're interested in that, the directions on how to be able to do what we're going to take a look at, let me post that into the chat here. You can find that there for what I just posted in the chat. Once you do that, let's go over here. Let's see what we need to be able to do. For me to be able to do that, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go in. I need to go in to your Google Drive. So you do need a Google account to be able to do this. Once you are in a Google account, that what you want to be able to do is that you're going to go here and you're going to open up, and these are in my directions, so you'll be able to see it. We'll show you exactly what you need to do step by step. I'm going to go into my Google Drive, and in your Google Drive, that part of those directions will load this file folder in here called 2D depth. There are links in there to be able to do that. It will talk you through the whole process in there. And in here, when we open that up, it's going to do two things. It's going to create a file in here called infile and a file called outfile to be able to do that. So what we want to do is we want to move over to the infile. It will create all these other ones in here. They'll be created in there. You don't need to worry about those. We're going to go in there and we're going to open up the area for infile. Now, in the area for infile, we want to be able to take the file that we want to be able to do our conversion from, and we're going to bring that into the system in here. So let me go over here. Let me find the right one. I'm going to drag in an image that I want to be able to use. So let me drag one in here. Now, this is actually the sample file that comes with it. So when you first load it, this file will be there for you automatically. I'm using it as my example. It's a good example of that. So I want to take this image and I want to convert this from 2D to 3D, and I want to do it using the depth map. Now, I could have used it for one of the ones that we had from one that I started with black and white, convert it to color, and then move it over here. So you could have done that whole process. In my case, we're just going to take the sample one in here just for purposes of demo in here. Once I've done that, then I want to go and run the program. So the program that we're going to run in here is the program here that is loaded on here, and the directions are in here on how to be able to do that. And you're going to go in here and you're going to see that in here to be able to load that. We're going to run that program. And what it's going to do is it's going to go in there and it's going to load this. And we need to be able to run this one here. This one is going to go in there and it's going to find what is in the input folder that we did in there for that. And it's going to convert that. So anything that you have in there, maybe because I had the other ones in there. Let me see that. Yeah, let me terminate that one. It's because what I had shown you on the other area previously, apparently that was still running on my system. So I'm going to go ahead and run this one on here. There is absolutely nothing you need to be able to do, and you can, like I said, just drop it and drag it into the infile folder in there to be able to do that, just like what I was showing you. And then we'll see how long it takes to be able to run this. You can do multiples of these at the same time, so you can load 5 or 10, 15, 20 images. Be aware, though, that the more images you take, the longer that it will take to be able to get the results. So it may not be something that you're really happy with in here to be able to do that. Now it's doing the validation for that, and it's doing the output, and it's putting it in the out files. It took whatever I had in my in file, and it made the same thing, and it put it into my out file. So let's actually just take a look at what we need to be able to do. We're going to go back over here, and we were in the area for my in file. If you remember, we had our in file right here, and we're going to go from there, and we're going to go over into the out file. And in here, it shows the exact same image. There's absolutely no differences in here. It's exactly the same one at this point. But where's my depth map? Let's actually just take a look at what happened. And I think I have my depth map ready. If not, I can download it again. I have it available though. I'll just download it from here. So I'm going to go there and we're going to download this. And the directions on how to do this are in the system in there. So it will actually show you that whole process for what it is that we're doing. So we're going to take this, we're going to download this one right here. And we're going to go ahead and open that up. So I'm going to take that and move it over to where I want it. Then let's take a look at the results. So here it is, and you notice that it has the depth map in there. It's already there. It did it. It's actually, it doesn't show when you're doing it in the out file in here, but it's there. It's part of that one. So let's actually go and take a look at that and bring that into StereoPhoto Maker so that we can see the results from here. So I'm going to take that one and we're going to drag and drop that and we're going to upload that in here. No, we don't want to save that one. And then here is the image that I had, just like we had in there for that. And you notice that the images that are close, the images that are far. And again, let's actually just take that into a stereo image. So again, we're going to go up into the menu, go to depth map, and then we're going to be able to create our depth map from there. And here is our image. So let's actually take a look at that as an anaglyph as well. And you see it did a pretty good job. There is a problem in here that I noticed. If I look at this woman over here, you notice that it looks like, to me, that her skirt is leaving her body in there. It looks like that it's too far in front. It doesn't look right. It's not correct in there for that to be able to see it. Otherwise, it's pretty good. So let's actually take a look at why that occurred and what that problem is. If you look at the depth map, you notice in here, when it was back in the depth map, that it is a little darker here than it is in her body. So we see two different tones in here to be able to do that and some problems in here for that. So that's what's happening in here. And we need to be able to fix that and to be able to adjust that. So we're going to fix that in Photoshop in here. But questions on what we did in here, before I go and show you how to be able to do adjustments, questions about on what we did in here to be able to take an image from a 2D image and convert it over using this technique into a stereo pair.
Do you have any sense of how this program generates the depth map without, since it's not working from a stereo pair to begin with?
Yep. So what Google did was that they wrote a program in here, and it's called the Mannequin Challenge. So what they did was they went in and they looked at thousands and thousands of images online, and they said, we want to do an image from motion. So if we look at the image in there and we see the image for what we had, and that we analyze it in there to be able to say, if this was moving in here, where would we have a depth in here to be able to do that? And then it did analysis in there. So essentially what Google did was they wrote a program in here to be able to take and interpret an image in here. And it does an okay job. I'm going to show you some areas where it has a problem or challenges in there, and then how to be able to fix those. So we see that in there. And some of those, it was like, yeah, they did great. And some of them was like, nope, that's not going to work for us. And we need to be able to fix it. So essentially what it's doing is that it's just doing a photo interpretation analyzation based on some code that Google wrote to be able to do a comparison and try to be able to figure it out when you don't have something to be able to go off of. And it does a reasonably good job. There are some limits, though. All right, so let's take a look at this. Let's go in here. Let's go back over into Photoshop to be able to take a look at this. And let's go in here, and we want to go to the one, we're going to use the one for the bomb. Let's go back over into StereoPhoto Maker. Let's bring in that image, and I'll show you the problem in here, and you'll be able to see the problem with the image and what we need to fix. Let's do this one. We'll just convert this one to a stereo, leave the examples, and let's take a look at our glyph. and take a look at where those beams are at the top. If you notice this, the area in here for what we're seeing for what's happening here, that it should be connected to this beam in here, and they're not. They're not at the same depth. And so there's a problem in here that doesn't match the depth in here for where it should be, and we need to be able to fix that. So let's actually just take a look at what we did. In this case, it was a fairly simple conversion or fairly simple fix in there to be able to do that. What I did was I went in and I added in a new layer on top of that, and then I matched the grayscale for what I did. So I just sampled the grayscale area here, and I painted in one that went over. So to be able to find the original one that I wanted to be able to paint over, I had the original image just shifted all the way to the right. And then I just went in there and said, okay, I'm going to paint on top of it. You notice in here, it's a little easier to be able to see it. I just painted on top of it right there. This is what I needed, and I painted in there. And basically, this is the only correction that I made in there for that. So let's actually take a look at that and take a look at how that works inside of StereoPhoto Maker, and we'll see the correction original adjustment in there for that one. And let's go ahead and run this one again, and to be able to see it. And now we can see in here where things are starting to match up. Now there's some other things I could probably, if I was going to do it again, I'd probably actually push all of these back further instead of bringing this one forward. So I'd probably push that back to get more depth of that. But you can see that it made a difference in there for what it is that we're going to see in there for that. So those are the type of things that we want to be able to do. We want to bring it in, and then we want to be able to go in there and to be able to put in our own color on top of that to be able to mask out with a new depth map in there to be able to match whatever the areas in there that were not correct in the original, and to be able to put them in the new one. So once we do that, then we can run that from there. Now, let's put one last thing in here. Let me go back in here one more time. Let's go back over here into the one that we had. With our group in here. Show you one other little nifty thing that we can do in here for this. Let's run this one again in here to be able to fix that, or to be able to make it into stereo. And then I can go in here. Actually, let me put it here. There is an area in here that will allow me to be able to go in. If I go into the depth map area, that I can create a lens blur from that in here. And I can go in here. Actually, let me put this back to where it was. My apologies. Need this one back to this one. If I go in here, I can do a lens blur on here, which is kind of a neat effect. So if you're looking at this one in here, I can go in here and I can say, where is my focus? So I can change my focus from the woman here to over here to the background. So I can change that focus in here because I have the depth map to be able to show where each of those are. So if I need to be able to highlight or focus a particular part of the image, I can do that as well. So it's kind of a neat effect to be able to do that. And you can control how much blur that you're doing on that. So you can make it so it has almost none, or you can make it so it's very, very intense, depending on what you want to do. So anyway, that's what I wanted to be able to show you here today. Questions on what we talked about on the colorization for the depth map technique and some of the capabilities there. Questions about those?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it easier if you're going to convert a still black and white mono image into a stereo color image? Do you do the stereo first or the color first?
I do the color, and that's why I showed it to you in that order. I do the color first. That way you make sure that the color, because there can be variations like what Carl was asking. I noticed some variations in between the left and right. If you do the color first, then there will be absolutely no differences, and then you just need to make sure that you're doing the depth map correctly. So I definitely do the color first.
Thank you.
It just dawned on me, there's one more program I forgot to show you in here. This is another paid service in here, but this one is the only one that I found. It's called Runway, and I'll just go ahead and let me post the link into the chat in there for this one. This is a paid service. The reason I'm showing you this one here is that this is the only one that I found that has the ability to do the depth map and to be able to do the colorizations together. So you can actually do both of them in there on one place. It does other things in here. It has other tools capabilities in there for that. This one is a paid service in here to be able to do that. You can go in there and you can subscribe to it in here for that. You drag and drop your image in here to be able to do that. It does have some controls in here, same render factors that we were seeing in there, a few other things in there to be able to do that. The difference here, though, is that you pay per image for what it is that you want to be able to do. So you do have to have a registered account to be able to do that. And then if I go in here and run it to be able to do that, when it does that, then it will charge you on a per image basis. It's about, I think it was about 50 cents an image to be able to do that, unless you have a paid account for them. But anyway, I didn't pay for it because I was using these other ones, but I just wanted to give you guys some options in there to be able to do it. And like I said, this is the only one that did both the depth map and the colorization in one program. There, you have to run them one at a time to be able to do that, but it does other things in there for that. But anyway, I wanted to share that. Anything else that I can help with or add? Any other type of questions about what we've looked at, about capabilities, limitations, etc. in here for what we're seeing in here?
Excellent work, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I want to talk about, we do have some upcoming workshops. Our next workshop will be, it'll be the clone tool. David Starkman's doing a workshop on the clone tool. Then we take a month off so people can enjoy the 3D con. And then Barry Rothstein will have a workshop on phantograms in September. So if anybody wants to give a workshop, just contact me. And this will be up probably in a couple days on our site. If anybody came late, I can repost the site.
In fact, what I'm going to do here is that for anybody that did come a little bit late after I started posting all the links, here is all of the links that I posted in there, what they are, and the areas to be able to get to them. So that if you want to be able to capture those, if you take a look at the area for directions in there, that was how to be able to do the depth map one that Masuji wrote, and then I did the English directions for that. That it has my email address at the top of that one, so that if you have questions, you want to contact me, you can reach out to me there. And my, like I said, my email is at the top of that one. You can reach me there for that. So happy to be able to help if you do have questions there.
I had a question about, I've used Zoom a lot now, but this is something I've never figured out, is all of these links and information that are in the chat column. Once this Zoom session ends, do those all just disappear, or are they accessible somehow?
What I generally like to do is I save the chat and then I add it to the description of the into the YouTube. So when you see this redone on YouTube, you'll see the
the chat will be down in the comments.
Yeah, I won't do the whole chat because a lot of it is like, can you hear me and stuff like that. But I'll try to put the relevant links in. If you look at the older ones, you'll see I do have that.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Somebody asked about DMAG. I know Ugo.
Oh yeah. So
DMAG, I use that myself.
Yeah, so I've used DMAG a couple of times in there for that. So if you go in here, what we looked at in here was the ability to, and I was just focusing on the ability to do depth map in here to be able to do that. It does have the ability in here with inside of StereoPhoto Maker to actually take and create a depth map from a stereo image, which is one of the things that you had talked about in the meeting on Thursday. It's really nice, especially if you're using something like what Eric was talking about with the looking glass to be able to make stereo pairs in there, and you need to be able to make more stereo pairs. There is the ability to be able to do those. Where is it? Create make the depth map here. Is that the one that we want? Create a depth map from a stereo pair. You do need to use DMAG. There's a couple of other things you need to be able to do. I'm not going to run this one right now because it does take a little bit of time to be able to do it. But basically what you're going to do in there is you load a stereo pair in here, whatever stereo pair you have in here, Well, let's just pop a stereo pair in. So, well,
You need to share your screen, Dave.
Oh, you're right. My apologies, I turned it off. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I did cover this in a earlier workshop.
Yeah. So basically what it's going to do is that if I have an image in here that I have a stereo pair in there and I needed to get the depth map, in my case, I have the depth map, but if I needed to get the depth map in there, how would I do that and how would I put the depth map in there? That you have the ability in here to be able to do that within side of my area for edit depth map, and you can use this to be able to create a depth map from a stereo pair. So it will create the depth map for you. You load a program in there called DMAG. You need to, if you have not loaded it, the first time you go in there, it will give you directions and it will give you a link to it to be able to do that. I'm not going to do it because it does take a little bit of time to be able to do that, but that would actually allow you to be able to make a depth map if you already have the stereo pair. So basically, you can take a one that you have the 2D and make the depth map, and then make a stereo pair, or you can take a stereo pair and make a depth map if you need to be able to do it for other things in there for that. So you can do it either way.
Yeah, one thing about DMAG is it is also a standalone program for doing generating depth maps from single images. And one of the things it does do is you can actually go in there and change a lot of the parameters, because you'll start to see the guts of it, that it's actually using not just shape recognition, like it's also using a lot of darkness. So you can tell by the artifacts what's causing the artifacts, because it does have a lot of artifacts. And you can tell that it might be using too much of light differences, or too much if something's in the center, it'll think it's the front. So there's a lot of, you can start playing around with the parameters and figure out how the program's working and where the weaknesses are. And then you can change those parameters. So that's one of the advantages of DMAG, but it is, it's a lot of work. Anybody else can comment, maybe, who works with it. There's a lot of different versions.
Yeah, I haven't done anything other than the basics of what's in there that Masushi put in to be able to do it, but it does do a pretty good job. I actually have taken images. An interesting test of it to be able to do it is take a stereo image that you have, create a depth map from it, and then take that depth map and move it back into a stereo image, and then compare your original stereo image with what you get to see what your results are. It's not perfect, but you know, it's interesting result to be able to do it and to be able to play around with those. So I played with that a little bit in there for that too.
Another thing I did is I did that, and then I also compared it to taking the half of the stereo image and just using another program to try to make a depth map, and it was much better than that. The detail was much higher than what you get from trying to take a 2D image. It's night and day. So it is a lot better than what you get from doing a 2D image and trying to use those methods.
So Carl, is this giving you any interest in actually starting to use mask rather than just deleting or erasing out when you're doing your composite images stuff?
My destructive ways.
Yes. Stop being destructive. Mask are easy. Mask are your friend, Carl.
And it's worked so far. But yeah. I mean, I definitely need to spend more time playing with it. I find myself torn in so many different directions. It's like it's like almost like trying to relearn how to ride a bike in a different way.
Actually, you know, I mean, if you want to talk about, if you and I want to get together and talk about that later, but once you start playing with the mask, that learning the mask, it literally takes 10 seconds to be able to do it, and you will not want to go back to doing it the way that you're doing it right now. It's so much simpler and easier to be able to do it, because and I've seen that on some of yours where it's like, this looks great, and there's a little tiny piece that it's like, oh, you should have put this piece back, but you deleted it and you don't have any choice in there. I noticed a couple of things. I remember you had some images of your son around a couch or something like that, and there was some little pieces where it was missing just a little bit, and it's like, oh, you went a little too far on what he erased in there, and that you didn't have an option to be able to put it back. I just remember little things. I mean, the work that you do is fantastic in there. This just gives you the ability to be able to go and to be able to fix things. If you notice something, the next day or 3 months down the line, you can fix it where without the mask that you're kind of stuck.
There you go. And I went and taught a class and taught everybody how exactly not to do it. So, but no,
Carl?
yeah, no, I'd definitely like to get together with you on a separate
sure.
occasion and just, spend a half hour going over it.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe we could do a workshop on masks because I have trouble with that as well.
Yeah, and especially with this last year with COVID, I think everybody's got a mask now, so it should be easy.
Oh, I gotta find my drum set. Gotta find my drum set. Rim shot.
David Heiser's raising his hand there.
Yeah, could you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I used to do a lot with Photoshop in years past, and layers are magic. I mean, the masks are magic. It gives you so many options and so much flexibility. You can change things right in midstream or do something, decide you want to change it. It makes it so much easier. It's really, really amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's videos on YouTube about it.
There's hundreds of them in there to be able to do that. I do want to point out that if you go and look at the colorization technique that I did at NSA last year, I did not talk about mask because I only had 30 minutes and I didn't have time to be able to talk about mask and the importance of that. So I did show some of that today because it's a little more advanced and we had a little more time. So I absolutely 100% recommend mask. But if you look at the workshop from last summer, I did not do that. But mask have been they've been a integral part of my technique for the last 8 or 9 years. They're just absolutely essential. And I think that anybody plays around with that, you'll see that.
I had another question about how one of the programs works its magic. I'm curious, when you have a 2D image and a depth map and bring those into StereoPhoto Maker,
right?
I can see how it can pretty easily do the first step of creating the the offsets that are needed to make the second, say, the right eye view.
Right.
How does the program fill in the little empty spaces that people used to have to fill in manually?
If you look in here, take a look at the image right here. You see this where it has it doubled compared to what it is on the other side? But take a look at what's happening right here. Do you see this line right here?
Yeah.
And you see how it's overlapping in there? So it does that right when you get to the edges on there for some of that. So you'll see that in there for that. And that's causing some of that issue in there. And you'll see another area right here where it's starting to get this overlapping area right here. So on the edges of the images, it will start to be able to put those in there. So typically what you want to do is that you'll go in there and you'll just crop that out. So you just go in there and just crop out to the area that's good, and then you're good to go. So that's typically what you do to be able to resolve it. But that's what's happening in here, is that it's actually right at the edges that you'll get this doubling effect in there for that. What I don't like about it is that, in my opinion, that it's very flat. It doesn't put the depth in there for that. So when you see things in here,
if you're using a displacement map, you can put a lot of depth in.
No. What I'm talking about was that it comes in automated. So the automated ones in there, they're very flat. They're very cardboard in there to be able to do that. But when you get those over into Photoshop, then I can go into Photoshop, and if I wanted to, I could start adding. So right here, you notice this all is all at the same depth in here for that. I could start adding more depth in here if I wanted to spend the time. So it gives me a starting point in there to be able to do that, where that I don't have to go and, to be able to do a depth map like this, that would take hours to be able to do this by hand in there to be able to do that. And then right now I have it here, so I could start adding, I want to be able to add a little more depth, put some flare out on her skirt for what I'm doing. I can add those in there and to be able to start putting some of that depth in there and get away from the cardboard edges in there. But at least gives me a good starting point. I know where to go in there to be able to do that.
David, when you edit depth maps like this or create them from scratch, it seems easy. It seems to me like it's straightforward enough if if all you want is cardboard figures at different distances, how do you actually manage the trick of grading from, you know, near to far, say from, you know, somebody's arm to their back to their face, and then all those little
so
do you use a tablet with a pressure sensitive pen and stuff?
You could. What you really want to do is that when you're in Photoshop, the way that you want to be able to do that, there's an area in here for there's an area in here when you do the grayscale in there to be able to do that. You can do one in there, and I'm trying to remember the technique in there to be able to do that at the moment. That you can do it so that it will basically what it's going to do is that it will make a gray image in here that will go from dark to light in here. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to go and said, I want this area, and I want it from the bottom to the top, and I want to be able to go from a dark area to a light area, and it will actually create and start with black, and it will go all the way to white in there to be able to do that. And so essentially what you're going to do is you're going to go in there and you're going to outline the area. I want this one in here. You know, if the woman's arm was sticking out into the image or something like that, I need these to be able to go. So like these bombs in here, they're going in here and they're going further back in here to be able to do that. And I need them to go in there. So I'm going to go and highlight the area that I want. I want this to go from very near to very far in there to be able to do that. I'm going to outline the area that I want in there to be able to do that. And then that there is an option here that I'm blanking out on at the moment.
Gradient tool.
Gradient tool.
Gradient tool. Thank you. So that if I go in there to be able to do that, and I go over into my gradient, I can go in here and I can actually do that. And then I can set that one in here. And then it will set it from dark to from near to far in there to be able to do it. Essentially like I'm doing it right there. And you do the same thing for each of those others in there to really paste it in. And then you're going to get a little more control. So it would allow you to be able to make those type of variations in there to be able to do it. So that's essentially what we're going to do to be able to help make it the way that you want it. So, I mean, obviously, in this case, I just pasted right over top of the original image. That's not what you want to do, but you're going to do that and then paste it into the area where you're doing your grayscale so that you end up with the final results for that. So I just do it here for each of this. And if you notice on here, when I'm looking at this one, I actually have here, the original image is off to the right. So I see the original image over here. And so I could actually just do it right on top of it. So I look at it and it was like, okay, this is what I want. I need it from there. And then that I've just put it onto the area that's my depth map one in here. And then it is, so I noticed exactly in the same place. So essentially what I have in here is two side-by-sides. I have the left in here, and also the left is on both sides in here. And then now I just make my adjustments. And now I have my depth map for the conversions. Like I said, this is the automated one, then I just added the ones that I wanted. So we've got about 90 minutes today. I appreciate everybody's time in there for that. Anything else that we want to be able to cover, Steve? Or are we ready to wrap up?
That's great. Great job. Everybody unmute themselves, and I want to hear some clapping.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.